This week's episode of Assassination Classroom was without a doubt the most action-packed episode of the entire series. It had student versus teacher battling. It had Dragon Ball Z references. It had tentacles. And not only that, but this week's episode finally gave us another big reveal about Koro-sensei's origins and past. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, massive spoiler warning, I'm going to talk about all of the big reveals from this week's episode. So if you guys saw last week's episode of Ask Class, you know they introduced a brand new student by the name of Itona. He's this weird, creepy looking kid who claims to be the brother of Koro-sensei, despite the fact that he actually just looks like a regular human, except that he has these creepy, swirly eyes, and he kind of reminds me of a robotic version of Killua from Hunter x Hunter. The first half of the episode is the formal introduction of Itona and his master Shiro, and they certainly make one hell of an entrance. First, let's talk about the Master Shiro. Shiro is just awesome. He's this white ninja who has all of these secret weapons all over his body, and I'm not quite sure if he's entirely human. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he is involved with Itona, who claims to be the brother of Koro-sensei. That, and if you actually look at his mask, his eyes do not look human whatsoever. They look pink and sort of dot-shaped, kind of like Koro-sensei. He could actually be some sort of weird octopus hybrid monster, just like Koro-sensei is, but that hasn't been revealed quite yet. What is interesting is actually the clothes that he's wearing is made up entirely of the anti-Koro-sensei weaponry. So if Koro-sensei actually tries to touch him, his hands will immediately explode and he'll get hurt just from touching him. It's pretty freaking extreme. Not only that, but Shiro also has this weird little watch that he wears, which can actually paralyze Koro-sensei. So Shiro is actually just as much of a threat as Itona is. But Itona really just sets the bar in this week's episode. His entrance is amazing. He's like the frickin' Terminator or like the frickin' Kool-Aid Man. He just busts in like Big Jim Slade. Big Jim Slade. Look that up if you want a good laugh. So Itona just bursts into the classroom, and I love the little confrontation he has with Karma at first, because he looks down on Karma almost like he's incredibly weak, and Karma doesn't really seem to show any emotion, but I wonder if he was actually pissing his pants during that moment. It's in the second half of the episode when we finally get to see how Itona actually is related to Koro-sensei. He's not exactly his brother per se, but he's definitely some sort of weird human tentacle octopus hybrid creature, because they end up having this impromptu battle in the middle of class. They set up this ring where they put all the desks to the side, and his hair has these weird tentacles which explode out, and the minute the battle begins, he immediately cuts off one of Koro-sensei's arms, and that's when the battle officially starts, and it's intense as all hell. The reason it's so intense, one, is because Koro-sensei is pissed off. When he sees that he has tentacles for the first time, he gets visibly angry, and he is not happy about what's going on. So he realizes that he's going to have to win this battle if he wants to get some answers out of Shiro and Itona. But at the same time, he still has that teacher mindset going on, and he doesn't necessarily want to kill Itona or hurt him. And throughout most of the battle, he's getting pushed against the wall. He's having to shed his skin. He's constantly losing limbs. He's having to dodge all of these crazy attacks. And then he eventually decides to steal all of the anti-Koro-sensei knives from his student and strategically place them around the room so that Itona would accidentally run into them and he would actually end up getting his tentacles hurt. And then what Koro-sensei did was he wrapped him up and threw him outside of the ring. Because he went outside the ring, he lost, but his actual, like, bag thing that he protected him in, which I'm guessing was, like, his skin, actually ended up protecting him so he didn't get hurt whatsoever. And Itona is just pissed off. He starts going into this, like, rage mode where these black tentacles erupt from his head. His eyes look so freaking demonic. And then he starts to charge Koro-sensei, and then Shiro takes him out with this weird dart that comes out from under his sleeve. Koro-sensei wants to get some answers, but he's not going to get them from Shiro at all. He claims that they will meet again. This is just another amazing adversary for Koro-sensei, who I think is probably the biggest antagonistic force that we've seen. It's at this point that the students are like, alright, Koro-sensei, you gotta tell us. What are you? How are you created? Did you really come from the Earth? Are you an alien? What's the deal? So Koro-sensei finally decides to tell him he's an artificial life form. It's not really that crazy because all the students are just kind of like, oh, okay, big deal, whatever. But that's all he's going to reveal. So this is still some pretty crucial information. We know that there are these artificial creatures in the world which are like half octopus or they have tentacles or something, and we're still not quite sure why they were created. Were they created for assassination purposes or for something else altogether? The fact that they're artificial life forms, I mean, there's so many questions about this, and yet he's still not getting into it. In fact, this is actually a challenge to his students. In order to get the information out of Koro-sensei, they're going to have to assassinate him, which is kind of strange, because if they kill him, how is he going to be able to tell them everything? But obviously there's going to be some sort of big twist with Assassination Classroom, and I can't figure out where that's going, and that's really what's got me interested in this show. That and the incredibly enduring characters, and all these wild card people they just keep throwing in here, especially this Itona character, who we're definitely going to see this guy again. I mean, he's definitely going to be one of the coolest characters from the show. And this episode right here just pumped me up so much. It was such a great one. So what's the rundown? On this week's episode of Assassination Classroom, this is my favorite episode of the entire series thus far. Obviously, I'm an action junkie, so I really digged this episode. But one of my favorite things about this one was simply just the style. I especially loved how when they were fighting in the classroom, the lighting, how it was all dim and dark. And then immediately when Koro-sensei took over and he threw Itona out the window, the color change just went to nice, bright, and calm. Koro-sensei was in charge. He had his green stripes back. It was a really intense scene. I really loved that entire battle. The introduction of Shiro and Itona is great because we needed another antagonistic force for the show. Despite the fact that Koro-sensei himself kind of is the antagonistic force because he claims he's going to destroy the Earth, but between you and me, I really don't think he's going to do that. I really don't think he would do that at all. I think there's a bigger twist for this show. Otherwise, this week's episode just looked really good. It was action-packed, it was awesome, and just there were a lot of cues that were really good. Like, I especially loved when Koro-sensei was getting really angry in that battle. Just, I love how they can go from, like, this cute, bubbly animation to looking like something like that. Just, it's an amazing thing that they do, and it sucks you right in. So, I just love this episode. It's one of those ones that I don't think I can do it justice. It's one of those ones that you just have to see for yourself, kick back, relax, and enjoy the badassery of this week's episode. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. I loved it. You should definitely check it out if you've been following the anime series, or if you consider yourself a fan of the manga version. You might see something you like. So check it out, guys. Fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching my review. Before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Assassination Classroom. What did you think of the introduction of Itona and Shiro, and how do you think they're going to shake up the rest of the series? And what do you hope to see from the rest of Assassination Classroom? Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you've not already. Follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!